Okay, so thanks so much, Lindsay, for coming on and participating in our interviews that we have for our Setsi YouTube channel. We really appreciate it. We appreciate all the leadership that you do as well. So as always, we begin all things by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those toiled without compassion, compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty. Please introduce yourself, Lindsay, and tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about your remarkable work.
Thanks for having me. So my name is Lindsay. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm lucky and grateful to live on the unceded ancestral and traditional territories of the Shishalt Nation in a place called Kwesam, which is also known as Roberts Creek on the Sunshine Coast. And it is a beautiful place along the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by cedar and many other beings that call that place home. So I'm lucky to live there with my 15-year-old son, and I'm really happy to be here with you today. So I do a few different things. I'm actually just transitioning out of a long career in the public sector, where I worked at the City of Vancouver for about 13 years on a variety of different projects. Most recently there, I was leading an in-house social innovation lab experiment called the Solutions Lab. And I left a couple months ago. This is now, we're in the back to school season in 2023. So this is a few months ago. And I'm now doing postdoctoral research in two areas. So one is a BC-based project that is focused on climate justice with the Zero Emissions Innovation Center of Vancouver and Emily Carr University, which is where I am today. It's interesting equipment above my head in this great studio space at Emily Carr. And the second one is an international public sector innovation lab question that's situated at University of BC in the planning school. And that project is focused on how these in-house innovation units inside the public sector can be more transformative, working more toward social justice, ecological health, and wellness in the innovation work that they do. So that's what I'm up to right now.
Amazing. And can you please articulate your personal mission and vision for us?
That is not a question that rolls easily off of out of my brain. So personal mission and vision, I would say, well, since I was, now that I'm in middle age and mid-career, I was actually writing something recently where I was trying to tell the story, the lineage of the story to now. And so maybe I'll in writing that and kind of reflecting on that, I realized that, I gathered up around this, everything that I've done, even though it's been in different sectors and on different projects and sort of different kinds of initiatives. I'd say there's a North Star that is around this idea of mutual flourishing from Robin Wall Kimmerer, this idea of working toward well-being for all generations of all species of all time, from Bill McDonough. So this like big North Star, I guess, guides me. And then I seem to gravitate, for a reason that's still not entirely clear to me, toward these really stuck public sector systems. I just, they're so central to work in that North Star direction and so difficult to shift. And so I find myself in various ways ending up orbiting around in that space, either in it or alongside it, trying to shift that part of the system towards something that's kind of healthier and just more, I'm going using the word love a lot these days in that space. It feels like quite counterintuitive to think about like loving and generative practice in those kinds of systems, but it feels like it really captures the essence of what I'm trying to do there.
Love it. I love how you said you're guided by the North Star, if I quoted you properly. I love that. And what inspires you most about your current work?
I'd have to say it's really the people that I'm working with. I'm surrounded by these amazing, mostly women and femme folks at the moment who are who are just showing up to their lives and their work in these beautifully entangled, committed ways. And I'm just infinitely inspired by them every day. And I feel like I'm so grateful for these relationships and these deepening relationships and kind of practice and experimentation with them. So I'd say that's kind of the thing that I'm most grateful for on the daily basis is this community of folks that I get to work with.
Right, right. Awesome. And if you could tell us, what challenges and barriers do you face in your work, and how are you and your team working to overcome them?
I mean, for anyone who has, I mean, I think we all interact with the public sector in some way or another, whether we want to or not. You know, we walk on sidewalks, we get parking tickets, we take our kids to school, we go to the doctor, we pay property taxes, we advocate for our elected leaders to change their practice in areas that matter to us. Like, it's such an important part of our daily lives. And it's like really, really, truly deeply stuck in a lot of ways. You know, I've had the privilege and the gift of working in kind of social policy and environmental policy and planning work in the public sector for a long time. And those folks are they're so committed to the work. They really care about people. They really care about the places where they work. They work there. They really do truly do their best every day. The people that I had the privilege of working with, and still the systems are just so difficult to change. And I was actually talking with a friend yesterday about climate. I mean, we've just been through another summer here where there's smoke in the air and drought conditions, and it's just that's the normal state of being here in this part of the world, and in many parts of the world. There are versions of that, and I was sharing with him that I read I find it like almost a ritual, ceremonial kind of act of reading maybe it's a bit problematic, but about reading the latest reports from the International Panel on Climate Change, as does he. And so we were talking about that, and just the level of consensus internationally among scientists and policymakers and you know, elected leaders is so high around that particular problem space, that challenge space, and yet still this stuck, like we're so stuck in our ability and our inability to act. And I find that, I mean, it's infinitely fascinating, and it's such a barrier and such a challenge. And so yeah, I mean, it's a big one, I guess. I'm not sure if you're looking for something more specific and more fine-grained, but that just big stuckness of these systems that are so important to our lives and so difficult to shift is a big barrier and a big challenge.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It's very key, very important. And do you have a set of key priorities in your work right now?
Yeah, so I'd say there's a lot. So this is a bit nerdy, but there's in this public sector innovation space, innovation means a lot of really different things. So a lot of it, you know, when we use that word, different practitioners, different folks mean really different things by it, and so it can be digital transformation, or it can be improving services for people. It can mean nudging behavior. It can mean lots of different things. And so for me, I'm really focused on getting more articulate and ambitious about a version of innovation in the public sector that's working toward eco-social justice, towards sustainability, toward, you know, mutual flourishing. So that's really where my focus lies right now, is in mobilizing and engaging folks in that space to be more ambitious about what innovation means to them in their work in the ways that they can.
Right, right. Excellent. And how do you feel about the future of social innovation in Canada?
Oh, it's so interesting. You know, like I well, I should start by saying I'm so hopeful about it, right? It's so necessary, so important, you know, it feels like we're in a state of transition that we're still figuring out after kind of a decade of leaders in our field, really moving the dialogue forward in a way that made social innovation, like increase the literacy of what that means and what that practice is, with decision makers and in all across the country. And I still feel like we're in a transition from the sunsetting of that leadership and that generation's work, and into what comes next. And I'm really curious about what unfolds there. I know lots of my colleagues were like, what's happening? We're ready. We're waiting. We need this. We need this network space. We need to learn from one another. We need to feel like we're part of a movement. Um, we need to activate that energy together. And so I know I'm curious, I guess, curious about what comes next.
Exactly. And I think it's growing that, I see that key interest of people really asking questions about social innovation and what it's all about and how they can get involved. And like you said, having their tribe, their network to get together and really, amplify into the future and into the next generation, right? So that's awesome. And what is your ultimate goal? And what does success look like to you and your colleagues?
I feel like at this stage in my life, I'm focusing more on really good, healthy, relational daily practice because I feel like that's something that I can actually wrap my arms around what that means. And so rather than thinking way out into the future and making sort of 5 and 10 year plans, this space is so rapidly changing. And each one of us is such a small piece of a much, much larger story we're in the middle of. And it's really hard to know what the next page is and what the end of the chapter is. And so for me, I'm really focusing on what am I doing today? What am I doing this week? Am I using the agency and the privilege and the access and resources and relationships that I am connected in with to the best of my abilities at this moment in time? And I just feel like it's also and also being that with and for the folks that I'm working with and alongside too. It just feels like a generous and healthy orientation to doing work that's really difficult, and it's feeling right for me anyway in this moment.
Exactly. Excellent. And do you have any closing thoughts or calls to action at this time?
I can't think of, I mean, other than the continuing to do this movement building work that you're doing right now by chatting with folks and understanding what's happening in the larger space and seeing what's emerging and what's needed, I think is maybe the gentle call to action. It's like, let's stay open to where we're going together and what we might be able to do together.
Perfect. Perfect. Wow, that went by really fast. Your questions were just so amazing. I love this interview. Everything that you're saying just resonated with me, and I really appreciate what you do. I wish you much success for all the goals and accomplishments you're trying to do for now and to the future. So,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome. So we will close the way that we began this interview by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge all the elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, and learn together for our collective liberation and sovereignty.